First year growing pains. I can understand this rationale, but I don't like it. Okay? And my argument to people that are saying first year growing pains, like, and you can go with anyone you want. And I will respect your point of view. I love debating and I love to bring up different things. Here is my stance on each of these topics. So the first one, first year growing pains. I don't necessarily believe that because Coach Kalen DeBoer, because of the talent that he inherited. For example, Jalen Milroe, Jan Miller, Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford, like he brought Parker Brailsford here, Tyler Booker. You look on the defensive side, Jahad Campbell, Deontay Lawson. You got Damani Jackson. You got Malachi Moore. Secondary was going to be a little bit shaky. But you got players. You got recruits. You got the brand. You got NIL money, right? So I don't really buy like the first year growing pains. And I think if there are first year growing pains, it's on Coach Kalen DeBoer because things have changed so drastic in terms of the culture shift, which I'll talk about later. But I don't really buy the first year growing pains. Like, this is kind of you step in and you can win games here automatically. Hardest thing for Alabama football fans, not so much the rest of the SEC, but for Alabama fans, is Coach Saban had these dominating teams and there was such a talent gap. And now people are going to have to get used to games being tight all the time. And Bama fans aren't patient, and Bama fans feel that a win is not enough. Alabama fans are accustomed to like absolutely dominating. So I think that's going to be one of the toughest things to accept, is kind of like this NFL style of play, whereas like every single weekend you're on the edge of your seat. Now the thing that Alabama has to its advantage is the brand, still the players, right? The facilities, the SEC, everything. But the portal will also be it'll work both ways too. You're going to lose guys. I would imagine you lose people at almost every position. Unfortunately, that's how it's going to work. And if you look at the stats, you could probably guess which players are going to leave, right? You're going to lose a quarterback to the transfer portal? 100%. You're going to lose wide receivers? 100%. You're going to lose some running backs? Probably. That's just the game. Big problems on the horizon. I don't even like the way that's really worded. I kind of go like C and D together. Chaos behind the scenes. This might be what's happening. And we won't know this until the end of the season or like in 2 years or whenever they do like a 30 for 30 on this season. Like after Saban. I could see people saying chaos behind the scenes because of maybe the players are as equal to the coaches. I don't see I think like let's face it, Jalen Milroe makes more money than Nick Sheridan. I could already see that kind of being like a power struggle, right? Ryan Williams is like bigger than anything. And I think it's not the player's fault, but like what has happened in terms of the transfer portal going up to B is now the players have so much power. They're making so much money. They should be paid, right? But now you can't coach hard. And the transfer portal, people sliding into DMs, there could be very well chaos on the scenes, which would clearly lead to big problems on the horizon for all programs. And kind of going into my next point too, are we seeing the impacts of a culture shift? Probably so. I think you couldn't have got a more different coach than Coach Saban. Think about this. It seems to me like a Kirby Smart, even a Dabo Swinney, who I know you guys definitely didn't want, right? Like nobody wanted Dabo Swinney when Alabama was coaching. Just hear me out. But it seems like Dabo, Dan Lanning, and Kirby Smart, I don't know, Ryan Day doesn't seem to have much of a personality. It seems like those guys are more like Coach Saban, right? Kind of like that fiery, competitive spirit, like animated, down to those guys seem like they're like down to fight, right? Like they would like, if you're hanging out with them, they'd be down to go. And I think those guys are kind of like Coach Saban. If they would have came into Alabama, Lane Kiffin doesn't really strike me like that though. He seems pretty like laid back, but he's a really big troll. Right? He does have that fire. He just doesn't display it like those other three I mentioned. Coach Kalen DeBoer isn't like any of those other guys. He has a completely different style in every shape and form, right? He's not from SEC country. He has a different approach. And I think you're seeing that being implemented here. And I think the players are kind of, I don't know if this is true, but I could see how you might take advantage of that. Because if you were like completely under a regime of Coach Saban for decades and years, and then he leaves, it'd just be like, has anybody had like a grandpa who is like the absolute law at the house? Like when you went to grandpa's house, like you didn't mess with any because you knew that grandpa had authority over everybody, right? And it's like when grandpa leaves and somebody else is here, you're like, hey, grandpa's gone. Or grandma. Everybody had a Mima who just like absolutely is the top. And when they're gone, it's different. So I think you are seeing like the culture shift. Plus, it's like, I think it's probably the culture shift from entire college football. And another example would be like, Colorado. That was kind of, we saw like with that culture. We've never seen that culture before. I mean, I've seen a couple people saying it's an overreaction. It just doesn't, like we mess around with that word, the standard, but things are just so different, right? And I think it's hurtful because you want to protect the brand. You want to like protect what you had. And you see, and I don't buy this because you're losing games. You know what the biggest thing is? I feel it's not an overreaction because of this. Teams don't fear Alabama anymore. Thank you, KTK. Yeah, you ever gone to your grandma and grandpa's house and messed around? They will bust your you-know-what in 2.2 seconds. And it's like no rules apply over there. Like it's like law. Like the law, you know? We had a yardstick. I promise you, my grandma, she had a yardstick. You were terrified. They just don't. My grandpa, are you kidding me? Oh my God. If you messed up, you were like, you had anxiety. And I don't feel it's an overreaction because I don't think teams fear Alabama anymore. When you see, like, I get it. Look, it's a whole different roster at Vanderbilt. But those guys knew in their locker room that they were going to beat Alabama. That didn't exist. That didn't exist like since I've been here, that has never existed. I guarantee. South Carolina. Shane Beamer. I think his press conferences are they're interesting. He seems a little goofy to me. But this guy he told the team before they went to bed, he was like, hey, before you say prayers and go to bed, we're going to have opportunities because of the way that Alabama plays defense. See you guys in the morning. It was almost like boring in the past to cover some of these games because you knew that absolutely there was no chance in hell that Alabama, that this team, they were like scared. Remember Tony Brown? When he would Crazy Tony, when he would just walk through, the teams would be stretching and he'd just be walking through in his girdle. That was like that mentality. You didn't mess around with Alabama then. That was just a couple years ago. Snell's, we're in with the super chat. I appreciate it, man. If Milroe's injury or whatever is causing that much of an issue, I'm confused on how that helps the team out. Yeah, I know. And why are you throwing it 45 times? Or if he is injured, then, maybe get him healthy. There's still a long life left. We talked about, it's not like the season's over by any means. There's a video going around where he's like kind of like limping. Did you see that? It was before the game, but I didn't see him limp like at all during the game, so I don't know. But nobody fears him. So I don't know. That's just kind of the state of the program. Like kind of cruising through it. There's a lot of different things. And we didn't even put like, lack of, schematics or coaching or whatever. It's just, I think that might lump under like A. So what's scary is, see, Bama still, I was thinking about this, okay? Bama still says people are acting like we're FSU. Okay, yeah. You know what? That I was thinking about this, and thank you for bringing this up. For a long time, and I've never seen this before, Alabama is like driving the train for everybody, right? Like, this is what to do. When you hear like YouTube greats like Josh Pate, when you hear like, I don't know, like guys with like that big of a platform, they're always using Alabama as the example of like what to do, kind of like the model. And then on like social media, you're seeing where teams like are being made fun of. For example, like two examples I could think of is like the Florida two offensive linemen like tackling each other. Or, you know what I was thinking about is like Florida State, what was it last year when they had a wide receiver that was like, remember, this is true. He was lined up the other way as like a distraction. Do you remember this? He was like lined up the other way. And now, like, this is the first time that I've seen Alabama be like a meme on social media. I'm serious. Like, usually the most that we've seen would be like Coach Saban, like, getting mad on the sidelines and throwing his, headset, and they're up like 42-3. But just recently after Tennessee, I saw two memes of Alabama, which I hadn't seen before. It's kind of like people are laughing at Alabama, which I think is like I've never seen that before. The first was Mo Linquist pushing down King Mac and King Mac falling. And then the other one was the jump shot. Like, and this was the crazy thing, is Nick Sheridan admitted yesterday that nothing on the field isn't what they're coaching. So we already saw those gadget plays that we didn't like when Alabama was rolling Georgia. And then like that basketball stuff, he admitted yesterday that he coached that. Love you guys. See you soon.